On Health Matters Television for Life, do the short days and cold temperatures have you tempted to hang up your tennis shoes for a few months? Staying active in the winter is especially important with holiday parties and high-calorie foods everywhere. From snowshoeing to Zumba, fitness experts share their secrets to working out when the winter weather makes it tough to stay active. Right now on Health Matters.
Health Matters is made possible by viewers like you, the friends of KSPS, and by the following.
Providence has the best professional and the best nursing staff, without which we could not do these complex procedures. I'm Dr. Stephen Nisko, and I choose Providence because Providence is fully invested in my success and in the success of my patients.
As the saying goes, children aren't just short adults. They have special needs. I'm Dr. Judy Felgenhauer. I chose Providence because they see the need for specialized care just for children.
Find your doctor online at phc.org.
Good evening, I'm Teresa Lukens. We are right in the peak of the holiday food season, and to top things off, many of us are neglecting to stay active. The trick is being creative when it comes to working out in the winter months. You also need to have a plan when busy schedules make it hard to hit the gym. Here with some strategies to help all of us succeed is our panel for tonight's show. Lindsay Miller is an assistant clinical professor of nutrition and exercise physiology at Washington State University, Spokane. Jacob Deakins practices family medicine. His specialty is urgent care, and Dr. Deakins is also a fellow of the Academy of Wilderness Medicine. He works at Providence Urgent Care. Diane Tapp is a physical therapist with certifications in manual therapy at St. Luke's Rehabilitation Institute. And Kelly Pearson is a doctor of chiropractic with Pearson and Weary Chiropractic Orthopedics and Rehabilitation. And welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I think we can all use some help this time of year. I read something interesting recently. According to a recent study, it was a Canadian study that said being obese, and I think that kind of plays into tonight's topic, can take 8 years off of your life. That's a big chunk of time. So we certainly all want to fend off the pounds. We want to stay active. Let's first talk about each of your areas of expertise and what you bring to the table tonight when we're talking about staying active. Lindsay, let's start with you.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm in nutrition and exercise physiology at WSU Spokane. And I say the overarching theme of, I guess, my interest is cardiovascular health and broadly, again, essentially limiting risk factor through healthy eating and regular physical activity. Okay, and Dr. Deakins?
So certainly I'm an avid outdoorsman. I enjoy the outdoors. Anything that gets me outside is my preference. Enjoy running, biking, and certainly as a physician I see the serious health effects of obesity and disease in people on a daily basis. And certainly like to advocate proper nutrition and just being active in any way possible.
All right. And Diane?
As a physical therapist, I oftentimes in treating the injuries that occur because of people exercising or doing outdoor sports.
You're who we don't want to see.
Right, that's right. However, if you do have one, what we do too is to do the rehabilitation, but then also to train people how to avoid re-injuring. And then also to how to maintain an active lifestyle that's safe for them.
And Dr. Pearson, your practice actually has an interesting approach to health, and explain exactly what that is.
Well, similar to Diane, our goal is to get movement back in anybody's life. And what we find is that little niggling pains become greater and greater disability, and then the pain stops them from moving, and then that lack of movement increases the pain, and before you know it, in your mind, you're mentally disabled. And it is, as all of you attest to the fact, when someone even who hasn't exercised for 10 or 15 years finally gets the help they need to restore the movement and their pain goes away and they start doing things they haven't for 20 years, that's the reason we all do what we do, to see people change. And so our work in my office is to do some manipulation, and we have an athletic trainer and massage therapy, all with the intention of meeting them where they're at and moving them forward, even if it's a tiny little baby step.
And of course, tonight we do encourage you to call into the show with your questions. You can also email us right here at KSPS and ask your questions of our panel when it comes to staying active in the winter. What are some of the real stumbling blocks? What, I guess, prevents us, whether it's the holidays or getting busy? You know, what do we tend to put up roadblocks for ourselves and stop working out or doing those things that we so much enjoy during the summer months or the nicer months? Dr. Deakins?
I think time is a critical factor for people nowadays. We're so wired and we're so scheduled to our daily tasks and itinerary that most of the excuses that I hear revolve around not having the time. It's certainly something that has to be made a priority. Whether it's before work, after work, during work, I frequently tell patients that lunchtime is an optimal time to exercise. Most people have an established break, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, and very few of us will eat for that duration. So I enjoy your lunch, get up, walk around your office, do the stairs, get out, walk around the building. There's time in the day. As mentioned before the show, I'm a father, have 4 children, busy medical practice, personal life, and I try to squeeze in at least an hour a day of physical activity in one form or another. So having not enough time, I do not think is a valid excuse.
Well, do we need that full hour, or can we do it in a short amount of time?
Well, actually, the recommendations are 150 minutes per week. So I think a full hour is beneficial and probably optimal, but actually breaking it up, if you can, even in just 10-minute increments, is beneficial as far as preventing or helping with risk factors with disease. So I think, again, if you can do a sustained or longer period of exercise, that's great. But if you're unable to because of time constraints, then if you can do 10 minutes before work, 10 minutes on your lunch break, on a short break, make up an excuse to walk across the office or walk across campus in my case, that is also beneficial, and it can add up over time.
See, that's very good to know, because I think we do tend to say, well, I don't have an hour, but I have 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes on my lunch break to do that. And injuries can really, again, we talked about that being a stumbling block, can kind of come into play. So the sooner you can get to rehab and address those problems, probably the better to get moving again.
Sure, and that's the thing, that we can help them identify what's safe for them to do at this time, because there's always something they can do. If it's something in weight bearing that's bothering them, they hurt a knee, a hip, an ankle, we can do things with the arms that they can work out, that type of thing, or give them more options and other possibilities that can still give them exercise and they don't lose their routine. I think another thing that's part of the problem is people don't have a routine, and I tell people exercise is like brushing your teeth and comb your hair. You wouldn't go out, without doing that. Exercise has to be part of your life just like that. And it doesn't have to be an hour, 10 minutes, here and there. And we just sabotage ourselves because we think we have to do that whole hour. It has to be really intense, and we have to be a sweaty mess when we're done. And you really don't. It can, if you're working in your target heart rate, yes, you're sweating somewhat, but it doesn't have to be all-consuming and not being able to go back to work at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything is better than nothing.
And we've been so fortunate with the mild winter we've had so far. People are still out running and doing some biking. It does get dark earlier, so there are some concerns there. And there can be some injuries. And we've had a little ice, and you've probably already seen a few of those kind of injuries.
Yeah, usually in the parking lot right after treatment. It's like, oh, got it. But that brings up a really good point, because what we have to do for our patients, anybody we're taking care of, is create stability. And so often they're walking like they're 85 years old when they're 50 in the ice because they're so fearful of falling. And there's tremendous technology today with cleats of all different ilk and walking sticks. Not the other day I saw the cross-country team running down the street on an icy day, and they all had walking sticks, which was really intelligent because they kept exercising. Absolutely. So if we can teach patients that they can be stable, that gives them the permission to go out and not worry about falling. I think it's hard to fall on with cleats on.
And I would follow up with that I run throughout the winter, and I run on compact snow and ice, and I run through snow, and I don't invest in any special equipment. I've made my own studded running shoes. And you can go to your local hardware store and buy some sheet metal screws that are a 1/4 inch, and screw them in a horseshoe pattern around the lugs of your shoes. They don't poke through, and they work fantastic. And it'll cost you $1.50.
And it gives you the traction you
And
need.
it gives you absolute traction.
And take
That's
them off
brilliant.
before you come in the house.
And just don't wear them on your wife's wood floors.
You're going to be in big trouble if you do that.
But equipment is a vital component of being active in the
Well, and
winter.
that also brings up an excellent point, because a lot of people will continue to exercise, and we'll get the snow, and we'll have those icy conditions outdoors. What do we need to know, Dr. Deakins, because of the wilderness aspect of your expertise, layering clothes or having that special equipment when we go out in cold temperatures?
So the main thing that I would say in the winter months, and even when we're having a fairly mild winter thus far, is that cotton kills. We don't want anything that absorbs moisture. You want something that wicks moisture. And certainly having layers is beneficial. As soon as you start to sweat and experience evaporative heat loss, it's 20-fold over what you may experience when you're dry. So having layers and then not getting to the point where you're a sweaty mess when you're out there is important. And then planning for weather changes. Obviously things can change from sunny to overcast, and hypothermia is something that we see even in the spring and fall because of heat loss through sweating, conductive heat loss. When people sit down to take a breather, you can lose a lot of heat that way. So just having the proper equipment, and it can be fairly simple, just a windbreaker, polyester type clothing is generally preferred.
When does it become too cold to run outdoors, affecting the lungs?
Certainly people with underlying lung disease could experience bronchospasm or some tightening or restriction of their airways because of the cold weather. Again, trying to breathe through the nose is helpful because it will warm and humidify the air. I think the coldest day I ran last winter was 7 degrees, and I wore a neoprene mask. And it was a beautiful, bright, sunny day, but it was quite cold. And that was very doable with just a simple layer, some running type pants, and a simple windbreaker with a t-shirt underneath. Once you start generating body heat, it's very doable. I would caution people with underlying asthma or exercise-induced particularly to be aware of what their lungs are doing, and do what your body tells you it can do. Most of the time, that's the best advice I give people.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
have a question. I have been in love with smart wool socks this last few winters. What do you think?
Wool is absolutely fantastic. It remains its heating properties while wet via running through the creek or via perspiration. So wool is tried and true in the wilderness. So certainly natural wool or synthetic otherwise, but the adage in the wilderness is cotton kills. It's very easy to become quite chilled even with a thick cotton type coat or clothing in general.
Well, for people who want to take their workout indoors and sort of translate maybe some of the summer activities and take it indoors and not take the risks of being outdoors in the cold and the snow, Lindsay, what do you suggest? How can they sort of take that and adapt it for indoors, find indoor running tracks or that sort of thing?
Right. Well, I think, I guess working out in a gym would be a way to get around that. But also, I think there's actually a lot that we can do at home. So in addition to trying to incorporate the activity during your workday, whether you're able to get some exercise equipment like a treadmill or a stationary bike. I actually have a stationary bike that I picked up at Goodwill for $40. So I use that quite frequently. And use exercises that actually just use body weight. There's a lot of good resources online through National Institutes of Health to give you some ideas for different exercises that you can do at home with essentially no equipment. That being said, I'd like to share at WSU in the Nutrition Exercise Physiology Department, we actually do group exercise classes that are free and open to the community. So if individuals are interested in that, they run in line with our fall and spring semester, but all they have to do is sign up, and our students teach those, and it's a really fun way to exercise indoors.
And a great way to stay motivated. When you have the buddy system or the group mentality, I think it kind of keeps you on track. It keeps you, you're almost accountable to somebody that way if you've signed up for a class or if you decided to do it with a friend. We do have a phone call coming in for our panel tonight. We've got Lynn in Newport. Good evening, Lynn.
Hi, good evening.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, in regards to the barometric shifts that a lot of us suffer with, during the winter with arthritis and joint pain, Is there any suggestions that the doctors have that would keep us in better condition for continuing our workouts, that would help ease the pain, wrappings or heat or whatever that might help ease the pain so that we could keep on working out without as much problems?
Lynn, that's an excellent question. Diane, do you want to take that?
Yeah, depending on which joints, are bothering you the most, but generally probably more of not as much of a weight-bearing, impactful type of exercise would be easier on your joints. Something like an exercise bike. Swimming is ideal and particularly a warm water pool would feel really good to the joints. You can do it any time of year, and is supportive and a great way to exercise. But otherwise, and then also just gentle movements that aren't taking you clear into your end ranges of motion, and just doing what's comfortable. You just need to listen to your body. If it hurts, then don't do it. And so just moving through the amount of motion that you can, that your joints allow, but still being able to be as active as you can.
How far can she push herself before her body says enough? And when does she know that?
With pain. But so listening to your body and how it feels, and if you're having a bad day, I would go light and don't do as long as usual, and then see how you feel the next day and judge from there whether you could do a little bit more or if you should do it a little bit less. Maybe some more suggestions?
Yeah, I would just add on to that there's certainly, minimal weight-bearing type exercises, suspension trainers, resistance bands, things that you can do to stay active, keeping your joints through a range of motion. I tend to be a proponent of heat when people suffer that, those joint pains from a barometric pressure change. Moist heat tends to be more beneficial in my opinion, but certainly doing those types of exercises can be beneficial.
And at your practice, you could probably help.
Well, the first thing I think about so much is what they're putting in their mouth. Obviously, proper hydration. And it's kind of crazy in the winter. We don't drink as much, even though we're being dried out so often. So water is important, and maybe an electrolyte. I'm not thinking about a Gatorade, but a simple electrolyte without the sugar. And there are a few that you can pick up around town. But for me, I absolutely have all my patients on some form of omega-3. Omega-3s are they cause decreased inflammation. That would be like fish oil or krill oil. If you're a vegetarian, more like flaxseed oil. And then turmeric has been really helpful. Those couple things I would start straight up, because it can really mitigate the discomfort, so they can go a little farther before they hit that pain.
Are there any concerns with interactions with other medications that patients may be on with those particular supplements?
I haven't found anything, except there are some concerns about if you have a proclivity for bleeding, the fish oil is a little bit of a problem. But I hear back and forth some different data. Perhaps you can shed some light on that.
Yeah, I think with the omega-3s, I too am a big proponent of that, certainly for their anti-inflammatory properties. Turmeric, I concur with that as well. Again, you should always check with your physician if you're on certain medications to see if there's known interactions, because anything that alters your body's biochemistry is certainly a drug or something that could do that. So the best course would be to speak to your healthcare provider and make sure that there's no interactions. But certainly the Olympic athletes use things like dark cherry juice, which is a known anti-inflammatory, which I think is beneficial. And a lot of these things that you can use are certainly less harmful than some of the other medications that might be available.
Okay. Well, one of the stumbling blocks, again, of not exercising or being active can be the fact that, maybe it's too expensive or we just can't get to the gym. But the fact is, if the gym is your obvious choice, but maybe you have a different winter workout, there are some great ways locally through the Parks Department that you can exercise and have a lot of fun at the same time. At the City of Spokane Parks and Recreation Department, they have a great saying.
Get out and play, that's our motto.
And when it's dreary and cold outside, that's tough to do. So the city expanded its winter offerings.
Martial arts, outdoor recreation programs, events, biking, hiking, you name it, we try and do it.
The winter program is one of the most popular, with activities like skiing, snowshoeing, and even a winter camp for kids.
We also have our curling program that is based out of here as well. So that is a great way to get out and try a new skill and get out and be active.
And of course, the crown jewel of Spokane, Riverfront Park, which offers ice skating for all ages, with classes for beginners. The key is keeping it fun and affordable.
Our Parks Department really has so many different activities so people don't get bored throughout the winter.
And for those who miss the traditional sports of summer, there's stuff like indoor rock climbing.
New this winter is our indoor softball league, which is going to be, I think, pretty exciting.
Just a few ways the city is helping people trade in their Nordic track for the real thing.
No matter the season, there's no excuses to get out and have a fun time.
And Spokane is not the only place offering winter activities through parks and recreation programs. We have compiled an incredible list of other communities that offer winter fitness programs, and you can find that list at our website. Just go to ksps.org, and a number of activities and really no excuses right there when you look at those. And it really is about having fun, because if we increase the fun level, we forget we're exercising. We've put such a label on it that, you know, kids used to go out and play, you play in the snow, you just did the things and you stayed active, and now we sort of kind of bring ourselves down almost by labeling it as exercise. But also the fact that it gets dark so early and that the days are gloomy and gray can really have an effect on us too mentally and keep us from being active.
Right. I think one of the barriers besides time is people say it gets dark so early and it's so dark when I wake up in the morning. And I have come to realize that there are people who are really more prone to the SAD, the seasonal affective disorder. And if they are in that camp, they will be motivated, a little more lively and willing to exercise if they have one of those lights at home. And it's best to try to extend your day with them. For instance, you might get up at 5:30 and have it on in the kitchen until the light comes up at 6:30 or 7. And then the same thing when you come home at night. Those lights have an interesting way of stimulating our retina, and that produces a chemical that stimulates our pineal gland. And it's just as if we're feeling sunlight. So it makes us a little bit happier and more hopeful and perhaps willing to exercise. But I kind of worry about people not getting outside in the winter. I think they need to exercise outside even if it's cold, because we have strategies to keep you warm.
Mm-hmm. Even just taking a walk, a brisk walk?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. There's very portable lighting solutions. I enjoy running at night, even in the summer, because it's cooler and there's less people, there's less traffic. Of course, I would advocate wearing reflective clothing and making sure that your route is known to someone else at home so they know where you're going. Mm-hmm. But I've logged hundreds of miles from 8 p.m. through midnight, and it's fantastic. Out where I live, I see deer and coyote and very few other people, which to me is wonderful. And then, of course, the benefit of endorphins from exercise can help with any seasonal affective disorder, any mood disorders, depression, just the holiday doldrums, all of those types of things. Most people will tell you, that they are grumpy when they can't exercise, that are used to exercising. Mm-hmm. And certainly those pleasure centers of our brain are activated when we do exercise. And so you can actually withdraw from not exercising. So it's important to get out there and do it, and you'll start feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lindsay, that's what I was just thinking. I'm thinking, what exactly is going on inside our bodies when we don't exercise? We know the effect it can have on us when we do, and we know that we can gain weight, and that sort of perpetuates the problem. But what does it do for us, mentally and physically when we are not active?
Well, I think the points that he was making just before, where we know that physical activity has a positive effect on levels of depression and anxiety and reducing stress. So I think, as he was mentioning, the release of dopamine in the brain and kind of having that calming and kind of euphoric feeling, I suppose, is associated with exercise. But for me, I am definitely one of those people that I get a little stressed out when I don't get my activity. And I'm kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where I prefer early in the morning when it's still dark out. And I think it's really relaxing, as similar points of, there's not that many cars or people out, and you still have a lot of lights, and the Christmas lights are beautiful, and it can be really calming, I think, and a good way to start the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by not, having that kind of release, we start to suffer the consequences.
What kind of things do we need to really be careful for so that we don't end up seeing you in rehab when we are out running, when it tends to be a little darker, maybe slipperier? Some reminders that we can avoid some of the wintertime injuries that we might see.
Right, well, some of the things that we've talked about, having the traction on shoes, wearing appropriate clothing, lighting, headlamps, that type of thing if we're out in the dark, and just doing the amount of exercise that's right for you. I think sometimes people go out and try to do more than they should, and then they hurt the next day, or they strained something because they overdid, or they didn't warm up adequately and then cool down adequately. One thing that some people think they really should stretch, before they go out and exercise, and really that's a misnomer now. We really want people to stretch after their exercise.
After the
they've
muscles are warmed up.
Yes, and the stretching will be much more effective, and their muscles are more warmed up, they're elastic, they're going to give. It's going to actually lengthen the muscle. Then when they do it before the activity, they actually risk injuring the muscle because it's cold and it's kind of contracted, and we need to give it a chance to elongate. So just a gentle warm up, you can do a little gentle stretching just through your normal range of motion, but save the actual stretching for after the workout. And so that's one thing to really help prevent injury, and then just listening to your body, and if you're outside and you're doing something and you're on an uneven surface or you slipped a little bit, I know myself, I run as well, and it's like, oh, I can work through this, and it's like, oh shoot, I should have stopped half a mile ago because now my ankle's really sore, and so we really need to just listen to our bodies and kind of give it what it needs. And then I think the other thing too, and probably Dr. Deakins or Dr. Pearson can talk more about even nutrition after we exercise too, that we're hydrating before, during, and after, and eating the right things if you're doing longer periods of cardiovascular exercise where you've depleted your body of some of the nutrition that it needs too. So that can help, and would help with a healing process if they have had an injury.
Protein?
Protein is definitely beneficial. There's a lot of information out there now about various diets and fads, and again, I would just say eat as pure and as whole and as fresh as you can. The fewer steps between your food source and your digestive tract, the better, in my opinion. But certainly hydration is a very important point to bring up. Most of us walk around chronically dehydrated. In the course of this show, we will probably all lose about 1 liter of fluid through insensible losses or non-recordable losses just through respiration and whatever perspiration we may be experiencing. And so people don't think they're losing fluids when indeed they are. And total body volume for females and males are slightly different, but only around 4 to 5 liters. And so if you lose 1 liter of that through insensible loss, you're already behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
So be drinking water all day long.
Especially
if you're exercising.
Absolutely, and when it's cold, we're less likely to do that. So drinking before and after, rehydrating after the fact, reduces injury, keeps our muscles supple and less prone to injury in the future.
Okay.
So
we have another phone call. Louise from Spokane. Hello.
Hello.
Do you have a question tonight?
Yes, I'd like to have some suggestions for seniors, particularly when it's very snowy. We can't make it to the mall to walk around the mall.
Just what you can do at home?
Yes, and of course, we have Sit and Be Fit, but I'm just wondering if there are other ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call. We mentioned, you have a bike that you bought, at a discount. And do we like other equipment as far as bringing things into the home to help out?
I think so. I've actually seen, I think I briefly mentioned earlier, this program I think that the National Institutes of Health put out, where they're actually showing some exercises that you can do at home using things that you find at home, such as a chair to support and balance. Again, like presses against a wall for muscular strength, using kind of common motions that you would use throughout the day to kind of keep active, again, while at home. So I think that could be a good option when unable to get.
Is it important though to get your heart beat up, and with those type of activities, can you do that?
I think it is important to get your heartbeat up. I mean, in addition to kind of the resistance type exercises to maintain strength. And I think that you can do that basically by more repetitive motions with less resistance type activities.
Mm-hmm.
So the elastic bands, resistance bands, are a good option. You can be used in a stationary manner while seated, attached to a door jamb. There are suspension trainers that have no elasticity, but they're a static type where you can utilize body weight and you can adjust the incline of your body to whatever's comfortable for your body. And again, like Diane said, moving through those gentle range of motion without overextending, and that's something that is user controlled with those types of systems, and they're relatively easy to utilize in a small space.
Mm-hmm. Do we like ellipticals, recumbent bikes, treadmills?
It's interesting that you say that. Just yesterday I had a patient who hasn't exercised for a long time. She has had a lot of GI upset, many years of being pretty unstable, ended up having a right hip replacement, and realized she needed to move. So she asked my opinion about an elliptical, and I was a bit nervous about it, but she had one that was gentle and it had a grade that was tolerable. She called me about 2 weeks later, after she purchased this, finally, to tell me what amazing results. She feels like a 20-year-old again. She forgot the value of exercise because it's been probably 15 years to get her hip destroyed and then replaced, right? So I was surprised. I thought the elliptical might be a little dicey, but in her case, it turned out to be quite good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You have to enjoy the piece of equipment also. Otherwise, it's going to become a clothes hanger in your bedroom. We've all been there. So
she did try it a couple times. 2 different times she tried it before she purchased it.
See, that's a great idea.
The store owner was willing to do that.
That's a great idea. Are you a fan of equipment, Dr.
I
Deakins?
certainly think that anything that gets anyone moving and out of the recliner and up moving is fine. Again, I tend to treat patients and not populations, so I would say consult your healthcare professional to make sure that that piece of equipment is appropriate for you. It sounds like there's some options out there in the public that are free of charge, so you could perhaps try these pieces of equipment prior to purchasing something. But again, movement, I think, is the key for all of us. I mentioned technology earlier. We're all plugged into our phones and our iPads and our computers. I wear this little bracelet that vibrates every 15 minutes if I'm not active. And so it reminds me to get up and move around.
It's like a cattle prod.
It is indeed, yeah. There's no electrical shock, but it's very positive reinforcement to just remind me to get up, to move around. So if I am in the office doing administrative duties and I'm responding to emails, I'll get a little reminder to get up. And it tracks my steps and it tracks various things. And there's so much technology now that we can actually leverage to our benefit if that's the type of thing that you like to do. I like to crunch numbers and data and paces and distance and miles. Some people don't like that because it takes away from the purity of it. But again, there are a lot of simple things that are very helpful for a lot of people. And I've traveled and been in a small hotel room and confined, and I'll do jumping jacks and I'll do push-ups and I'll pace the floor back and forth. As long as you're moving, I think that's the benefit.
And I think that was Louise's concern. She felt like she couldn't get to the mall and do her mall walking, and what can I do at home? Well, do some laps around the living room, even if you have to.
Yeah.
But it is the holiday season, and you mentioned some of the equipment. You're wearing some of it. So people are out shopping for these fitness trackers and different devices and the apps. Any recommendations for doing that and buying those gifts this time of year?
So I think as long as you're utilizing it and it becomes fun for you, we mentioned, playing, and for me, I like to play. I like to ski and snowboard and bike and kayak, and to me, it's not exercise, it's fun. I get to be a big kid and go out and play. So this helps me just kind of remind myself of how much I'm doing, and it's kind of fun because I can compare with my brothers and my wife, and we can compete a little bit.
Not competitive.
Not at all, not at all. But those things, if it becomes something that's compulsory, or if it becomes something that's required,
a chore,
kind of a yoke around your neck, then certainly that's not the right thing to do. But I do think that because we are so technologically tuned in nowadays, that it can be cool to see how many steps you've done in a day. And A lot of these apps will say, hey, you did 10,000 steps today, try for 12,000 tomorrow. And
pushes you to the next level.
it will adapt to, hey, what were you doing for this period of time between 1 and 2? We see that you took 3,000 extra steps. And so it'll kind of prompt you to do those things. And for me, I think that's just kind of fun. You know, when I run a road race, you know, I may say, oh, I just did 40,000 steps in that race. And it's kind of neat to know how many miles I've walked at the end of the week. So just through routine activity, even while I'm working in the clinic between patient rooms, it'll track my steps. And at the end of a 12-hour workday, I may have walked 9,000 steps. So it's kind of neat
fun
to know
watch
those
that.
things.
Yeah, kind of fun. We've got Rosemary calling from Sandpoint. Good evening, Rosemary.
Hello, I'm enjoying your program.
Well, thank you. Do you have a question for the panel?
Yes, I have a recumbent bicycle and treadmill and light weights in my home that I use, but when I'm on the recumbent bicycle, I increase resistance. And I'm wondering if I'm getting as good result from the recumbent bicycle as I do from the treadmill, because I like both, and I use both. And talking about being a senior, I've exercised my whole life and never been obese, and I'm 85 years old.
Good for you.
I don't feel, I know one of the panelists said one of her patients, something about her patient walking 50-year-old like an 85-year-old. Well, I could beat the 50-year-old.
I'm sure you could, Rosemary. We have no doubt about that. Well, thank you so much for your call. And she brings up an excellent point. She likes both pieces of equipment, but she wants to optimize her workouts, her exercise. Is there one that's better than another?
Well, it kind of depends on what your goals are. As far as cardiovascular fitness, either one is fine as long as you're getting your heart rate up into your target heart rate zone, which is around 70% of your heart rate maximum. If you're not familiar with calculating that, you can look it up online. But the one advantage of the treadmill is you're getting weight-bearing exercise. And as you're older, especially into your 80s, it's good for your bones to have weight-bearing exercise. So that helps to strengthen your bones when you're doing it that way. The recumbent bike would not get you that much. But if you have any joint issues, you know, the recumbent bike is going to be less stressful on the joints. The other thing, the advantage of the treadmill is that it would also be challenging your balance somewhat, which is also a very good thing when you're 85. You would want to be safe, and if you need to hold on, that's fine, but you could also try to let go and you know, work on your balance as well. So, and that was actually, balance was another thing I was going to mention since the topic of seniors came up. You know, as people get older, we all are losing our balance ability. We quit challenging our bodies, and our reaction times are not as fast as they used to be, and so that's another concern, and particularly with outdoor activities. So if you do have balance issues, then, you know, definitely working out inside is better and safer. But to make balance part of your exercise routine is important also as we get older, more important.
Well,
as
and
we
by
get older.
doing that exercise and the weight-bearing exercises, you're doing yourself a favor because you're strengthening those muscles and making yourself less likely to take a fall.
Exactly.
So that is good to be able to do that too. So again, keeping that movement going and just making sure that, you know, that you're not setting yourself up for those injuries.
Right.
First of all, I want to acknowledge this wonderful woman who's a hero in my book. I do have a few 85 and 90-year-olds who are so darn fit, can touch their toes, can do this. One gentleman can almost do the Chinese split still, can do 20 push-ups and he weighs 92. I mean, he probably weighs 92, but he actually is 92. And I said, wow, that is so fantastic. And he's German. And he said, why is that fantastic? He took a little offense. I said, because most people your age are not doing that. He said, I have done it every day my whole life. Why would today be any different? And I think this caller,
that's a mouthful right there,
this caller is saying it all. And so, and very much so, I don't think age determines our ability to do. It's just whether we've done it or not. And I like the fact she's got both pieces in her home, and also just marching in place. If you don't have those things, using
hang on to a chair.
We were talking about high intensity interval training before the show a little bit, where you go hard for a minute and then chill for 2 minutes, and you repeat that 6 times with maybe a little warm up before or after. That's fantastic. It's 20 minutes. It can really, really help the person in a short period of time.
It's making that lifetime commitment. And Dr. Deakins, you've got 4 kids at your house. They all get outdoors with you. You've started them on a great path towards this sort of a lifetime of fitness.
Absolutely, and again, I think that's part of the equation. 2 girls and 2 boys, and my boys and I do martial arts together. And of course, in the winter, that's a great thing because you're inside. And of course, what little boy doesn't want to learn to kick and punch and, and those types of things? So those are all very important things to learn how to do. And then again, when they were smaller, they would be pushed in a stroller, which would tax my cardiovascular system somewhat more, pushing little children in a running stroller. And again, the example that you're giving your children to get out in front of their video games and their devices, to get outside and enjoy the outdoors and not make it a task, but a fun thing to do. Like her German patient said, age is irrelevant. Why wouldn't I? I've done this my whole life. So age shouldn't be a barrier to exercising. It's certainly something that's available to everyone. And again, it's just finding something that you enjoy doing and then do it. Move.
All right, let's bring Kevin in on the conversation. Good evening, Kevin.
Hi there.
Hi.
You know, it doesn't even have to be a burden or this or that. Sometimes just throw it into you have to do it. We just were down in Portland. We took our dogs down there, and it's like rather than taking the elevator up and down every time, you take the stairs. I mean, oddly enough, everything has stairs. You know, it's like you don't have to make it a workout. You can just go down and just go, okay, you know, here's no elevator, here's the stairs.
Absolutely. You make an excellent point, Kevin.
Yes,
you know, parking the car further in the parking lot at the grocery store and making the walk instead of trying to find that spot up front. Just those little things that you can do that will add up to that 10 minutes, you know, that you can do throughout the day to add to your fitness routine, not even realizing you're doing it. You know, we've changed so much. You know, we used to be farmers and be outdoors all day long, and now we've become this society that's, you know, sitting on our rear ends most of the time, and that's where we need to make these small changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Injuries are again kind of something that slows us down a little bit. If I have, say, a hip injury or a knee injury, Diane, what kind of things can I do in the meantime of rehabbing those or having surgery? What kind of exercises can I do to adapt? I guess adaptable exercises or things that I can do movement-wise so that I don't kind of cut myself off from any activity.
Well, again, it would depend on the limitations that you have, and hopefully if you've had a surgery or some type of a significant injury, you've had some therapy or some kind of medical intervention that could help guide you that way. You know, it's really variable depending on the person and their fitness level and their size and all of that, but a lot of the things that we've mentioned, you know, gentle exercises, you know, walking is one of the best exercises we can do, and everybody can do it, you know, unless, you know, there's some situations, of course. So, and again, it's listening to your body, resistance bands. Lindsay mentioned just using your own body weight for exercise. You don't have to have a lot of equipment and weights, you know, just doing little mini squats, balancing on one foot, wall push-ups, the elbow knee planks, you know, things like that. There's so many ways, and we have so many resources these days. We really have no excuse. You know, the internet and television and videos and you know, that there's always something we can do, and
Lindsay,
you could look it up.
Talk about muscle memory, because our muscles remember when we work out and then they start to go mushy when we don't work out. Is that correct?
Right. Well, it's interesting. So when you first, I guess, started weightlifting program or something like that, some of the initial gains in strength you have are actually on the neural side, where it's not necessarily that you're stronger in a sense, but you're able to use that muscle in that way better. So muscle memory is certainly part of it, and I think that becomes especially important as we were making points about walking on the treadmill and just these kind of balance keeping and general acts of daily living that are important to, you know, keep on going as we progress through life. So
how long does it take if something has stopped us from working out on a regular basis to really get to a point where we're almost starting over, or is there such a thing?
Unfortunately, it seems as though the benefits from exercise fade quite quickly. So after a couple weeks of inactivity, you'll start to see declines in strength and aerobic capacity and endurance, things like that. I think on the bright side, you can actually maintain with considerably less than maybe what your usual regimen is for. So for those who are, avid runners or something, and you travel and you're in these crazy, off your schedule visiting family, you could actually do less time, but maybe a greater intensity to keep your fitness level constant.
Mm-hmm. Is that true?
And I would agree that in endurance athletes, typically it's about that 2-week time frame where you start to see a pretty precipitous decline after you stop. I did, however, read a study recently that they took some endurance athletes that had not been active for many years, and they were able to regain their current or their previous level of fitness in a faster time than someone who was starting new at within the same demographic, the same age, and the same fitness ability. So that concept of muscle memory, hey, I did this 20 years ago, and now I'm doing it again, the gains were seen a little bit faster. So I thought that was an interesting concept as well. Kind of like riding a bike, I guess, if you haven't done it.
Getting back on,
Well, that makes us all feel much better. Thank you for that. I just want to underscore what Diane said. The value of walking cannot be underestimated. I had a patient who lost over a period of 2 years, I think it was, 150 pounds. She started with 2 blocks a day, and then every week she added a bit more distance until she was walking up to an hour and a half a day with her iPod. 150 pounds. She never ran a step. And if you've ever taken a look at the physique of a fast walker, they're beautiful, and they have very little proclivity for the traumatic injuries that runners sustain. So walking really rocks, and we think of it as, oh, I just walked. No, you walked.
Well, and because we set our sights so high, we put those pressures on ourselves to do more, and when something as simple as taking a walk can really do the trick.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Let's bring Louise from Moses Lake into the discussion. Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm watching your program and sitting on a stationary bike, pedaling away.
That's the way to do it.
And I want to know. My question is it better to say on a stationary bike or just walking or whatever? Is it better to go for a time? Okay, I'm going to do this for an hour, and I'm going to do it just at a moderate rate, or is there advantage to say I'm going to be a little more intense, but maybe not such a long time? Is there any advantage of intensity in shorter period of time versus moderation in a longer period?
Okay, that's a very good question. Lindsay.
Well, I think it maybe depends a little bit on what the goal of the exercise is. If you are trying to train for a competition, we're going to need to be working at that higher intensity. It might make sense to work a little harder. Otherwise, as far as recommendations for just getting the physical activity that we need, you can really kind of substitute, so to speak. So, a more moderate, longer duration or higher intense short. So, I guess it's kind of a little bit of a vague answer. That being said, generally, I think working at a high intensity is beneficial for the cardiovascular system. A little bit more stress, a little bit more benefit, really. And you would get to the point, essentially, where you could be working at a higher intensity for longer. So if you're able to, work at the higher intensity and maybe build up to even progressive, add on a little bit more time or add on a little bit more intensity, that would be a good way to go.
Mm-hmm. And mix it up a little bit.
Lindsay, I have a question for you. How would you advise somebody to get to that fat burning level instead of going too slow and not pushing it enough versus that they have to up it a bit so they can get the greater value?
Well, it's really interesting point is that technically when we're looking at, am I burning fat or carbohydrates, it is the lower intensity where you're the highest percent of fat. But if usually around a 50% kind of your maximal total ability, you're actually burning the more grams of fat during that exercise. But I would still make the point that it all, if you're trying to lose weight, it really relates back to how many total calories are you burning during the exercise session. So not so much of a focus on which fuel am I using during the exercise, but how many total calories am I going to burn, and that will relate to fat loss.
Well, and there's been a lot of discussion recently about making sure you're not, if that's your intent, if you want to lose weight and get to a certain fitness level, to not do the same exercise every day, to mix it up, because your body actually remembers and will get into a routine. Is that true?
I'm not sure that that's true.
I don't think there's much truth to that. I think certainly cross-training can be beneficial because you're not neglecting other areas of your body.
Or getting bored.
Yeah, okay. But certainly a variety is desirable, but a heart rate increase is a heart rate increase, and burning calories is burning calories. All calories are not equal, however, but certainly getting into that target heart rate zone for a period of time is certainly beneficial.
Okay, because I always feel guilty if I'm doing the same routine. My body remembers this.
And it kind of makes sense in a way that if you did exactly the same thing, like I run a 10-mile minute on the treadmill for however many minutes, at some point you will essentially seek the benefit of your training, and that'll be easier for you. So you'll be working at kind of a lower percent intensity.
So then it's take it to the next level.
Right. So it's important to progress. Hopefully every like 3 weeks or so you can maybe run a little faster, or again run a little longer. So
maybe add a little bit more weight to your weight routine.
Right. Keep kind of stressing the system.
And I used to think that running would get easier. It never does. I would think, well, certainly I could run this 3-mile distance without being fatigued, but I just find that my times increase because I'm pushing my body, because again, my aerobic capacity has increased over a period of time. And now 3 miles is still as hard as it was when I first started running. I just run it in a shorter period of time. So I think if I said, well, I'm going to run this 3 miles in 20 minutes every single time, then at some point it would become quite easy for me because I would have adapted. So that's probably what we're speaking to in that regard. But I think most people will then realize that they're not becoming fatigued or short of breath, or they're not experiencing an elevated heart rate, and they would probably, hopefully, push themselves a little bit
Take
more.
it to the next level. Okay. Anne is calling from Spokane. Good evening, Anne.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good, fine, thank you.
And you have a question tonight?
I do. I have found, I'm 60 years old, and I'm starting to realize that I have often used movement patterns that actually create pain rather than movement being something positive. And I've recently been aware of things like therapeutic Pilates. I'm curious if there are other research models or practices or systems to watch for as we're trying to be, can I use the word consumers out here, those who want to get into movement that is beneficial, not harmful. Where do we go to find help for that kind of thing? What would be your high recommendations for that?
Excellent question. Who would like to take that one?
I'll take a first stab.
Absolutely.
So most healthcare providers who are working with the body will have the ability to do what we call a functional screen. What's an aberrant movement pattern? What is one movement pattern that you're doing that's faulty, that's going to cause you to wear down inappropriately? And we all have them. We don't know about them because it's part of our unconsciousness. But if you go to a good healthcare provider, I mean, our clinic, we do this as well, and PTs do it, and chiropractors do these things, osteopaths, that you would find out what errant movement pattern they're doing that is absolutely causing their pain. And then you have to teach them the right way to do it.
To relearn it.
Pilates is a fabulous discipline. I think yoga, when done properly, in a non-competitive mode, is a fabulous discipline. But my husband and I have been chiropractors for 30 plus years, and we're just so amazed how just a little tweak in opening that joint in the spine affords them that ability to change their gait a teeny bit, and their hip pain goes away. It doesn't take much, but people don't realize it. I always say every day to myself and my husband, what do we not know? What do we not know that we'll find out today? and usually I'm the one that has to do the learning, but nonetheless, people just don't realize it. And when they go to PT and learn a new movement pattern, oh, now they can abduct, move their leg out 20 degrees more, and that shifts completely.
Not even realizing that they were doing it in the first place.
Right, and so there's so much magic in people watching you move and helping you move along, whether that includes manipulation where we open joints that are locked, or mobilization, all very extremely important. People just should keep going to good practitioners as long as they're getting better. And when they're better, they should be done and go out and live their life. But I don't think people have to live in pain. That's a myth, largely. They just have to know where to start.
So where is the best place to start?
I think physical therapists are an excellent resource. You know, physiologists at a medical level is certainly an excellent resource. Any good healthcare provider, like Kelly said, is an excellent resource. Somebody that can identify any abnormalities and correct those. I found that even something as simple as improperly fitted footwear can cause pain. And the shoe industry spends millions of dollars advertising how their footwear will help you strike the pavement more ergonomically, and you know, businesses like UPS spend billions of dollars teaching their employees how to bend properly so that they don't hurt themselves. So prevention certainly is worth a pound of cure, as the old saying goes. So I would certainly start with your healthcare professional and say, hey, I hurt here. Why do I hurt here? Look for leg length discrepancy, look for gait pattern, look for any number of things that could be readily solved through some massage therapy, chiropractic, physical therapy. There's a lot of things that certainly could be identified in a very simple exam.
We're taking it for granted. We're not asking enough questions. It's where kind of taking our own health care and our own well-being, you know, we need to take that responsibility.
Right.
Absolutely, and be a part of the process.
Right.
Not a victim to it.
Why does that movement hurt? You know, there's something that's not right, or you're moving in an abnormal way, or and it does take an outside person to look at it. You know, all of us have structural deformities. You know, there's not a single person that comes into any of our clinics that we can say, wow, you are perfectly aligned. I have yet to say that after 30 years. And so, yeah, we all need help that way. And then it's especially important if we're doing impactful things to our body, like exercise, and particularly weight-bearing, impactful, high-impact activity. Because if you have something that's you're not structurally aligned well, I mean, 95% of the population has a forward head, you know, and so if we can just correct that, and then you're pounding on that and you're running or you're skiing downhill and your head's out here the whole time, you know, or shearing the spine and creating all kinds of issues. So it's good to have an outside person look at you and identify those areas that will lead to eventual pain or dysfunction.
Well, that is a great place to wrap things up. Some great advice tonight, some great tips for keeping us active during the winter. I so appreciate all of your insight this evening. Thanks so much for being here. And that is going to wrap things up for us. You can find all that information about the Parks and Rec departments at ksps.org. We are back in January on the 15th with a special edition of Health Matters, when our topic will be, get this, healthy eating. We're just going to continue the discussion. We'll be joined by a guest chef and culinary instructor from Spokane Community College, who will be cooking for us and have some great recipes, and you won't want to miss it. For all of us at KSPS, thank you so much for watching this evening. Happy holidays. I'm Teresa Lukens. Good night.
Health Matters is made possible by viewers like you, the friends of KSPS, and by the following.
Providence has the best professional and the best nursing staff, without which we could not do these complex procedures. I'm Dr. Stephen Nisko, and I choose Providence because Providence is fully invested in my success and in the success of my patients.
As the saying goes, children aren't just short adults. They have special needs. I'm Dr. Judy Felgenhauer. I chose Providence because they see the need for specialized care just for children.
Find your doctor online at phc.org.